Hi everyone, welcome to my latest episode podcast. Today my guest is Ronda Payne and she is a lovely person to talk to, and today clearly she will stay centered, true, creative, strong, curious, honest and happy, as we can see from her cushion. For those who are listening, you may not, but Ronda is a very fun person to talk to. She's a creative writer. I call her creative because she do a million of creative things. Um, and she's actually AKA the girl with a pen. And that's what really sparked my first, as in, oh, who is this person? Girl with a pen. And I met her at a networking event, and we just clicked straight away. And she's also a writer, creative, and I found our conversation really interesting. And I hope that will help other people who were thinking about writing a book, or you have a business and you need copywriting. She definitely gave you tons of inspiration and help as well. So more like, I think the best way to introduce Rhonda is actually just let her tell her story. But first of all, welcome to my show, Rhonda.
Thank you, C. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, so I have a bunch of questions to ask you today. But first of all,
Yeah.
let's get into how did you get like become who you are today? Because I know you're a seasoned writer. It seems to me you are constantly writing. You're definitely a copywriter and you help people
Yes.
with that. But I also know that you had a career in marketing and different things. So tell us
Yeah.
about you and your story.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am what I would call exactly what you said in the intro. I'm a creative, but I don't always do what the world calls creative writing. I do that sometimes. So things like writing a book or short stories or, a novel, I don't get to do that as much as maybe I would like to because I'm spending a lot of my time being a freelance writer, which means I'm writing for other people primarily. So it began like a lot of writers begin. I started writing as soon as I could hold a pen and put sentences together. I began telling stories, and that was where it started for me. Was I enjoyed telling stories and sharing those with my family. And a teacher very early on, when I was learning to read, and of course in school you read aloud a lot, and she gave me an award for being the most expressive reader. And this is a teacher who must have given little awards to all of the children. But of course, I felt very special about being this expressive reader. And a couple of years later, I had a teacher that said I was very creative in my storytelling. And those two forms of recognition kept me interested in being a writer. And in high school, I took a course, correspondence, back when correspondence really wasn't online at all. There was no online, there was no email, it was all by mail. And I took a creative writing course, and it just was always something that inspired me, that I loved to do, and I still love to do today. When I was ready to start looking for a career and wondering what to do, I knew I could write, my family knew I could write, but there weren't a lot of career opportunities in my family's vernacular that went with being a writer. So it wasn't like I knew, oh, hey, I'm going to go off and be a writer. No, I didn't know what that looked like. So I kind of went with the next best thing, which was marketing. You
Mm.
write a lot in marketing. So I went off to learn how to be a marketer. So when I went to university, that's what I learned to do. That's the kind of courses I took in the program I took, was in being a marketer. And I worked in marketing for more than a decade. And I did use my writing a lot. And I enjoyed it. But I got to the point where I just didn't want to be a marketer anymore. And I don't think at the time I knew that in my head that I'd lost interest in marketing, but something had shifted. And a lot of things had shifted in my life at that point. I went through mental health challenges. And what I learned from those mental health challenges was the way that I was living wasn't working. It was no longer effective. I was a perfectionist, type A person, And I was very driven. And I thought that my goal in life was to just continue to work up the marketing chain until I became, the VP of marketing for a very large company. That's what I thought I was going for. And then I changed jobs, and I changed jobs again, and I changed jobs again. And on the last job, I got laid off because, of course, marketers are the first people to be let go. And I didn't know what to do with myself. So I looked for a job because that's all I knew how to do. And then a colleague sent me a note and said, I know you're in between jobs right now. Could you help us write some copy for our website? And at that point, the light bulb went off in my head and I went, huh, maybe I could do this. Maybe I could just be a writer and do marketing. And then it took me another couple of years of being on my own to learn that I could just be a writer and I didn't have to be a marketer to make money. I could be a writer. So here I am 15 years later and loving what I'm doing. And yeah, I write every single day, every day of my life.
Sometimes I call people like you have this type of situation called accidental entrepreneur, because
Totally.
in a conversation we had before, you said you had never ever think you would do this.
No,
And
see,
life happened
honestly,
to
I
happen.
didn't think I could do it. Like, I didn't think I could do it. And like you and I talked about that moment, clear as a bell. I remember sitting at my desk, and I was a VP of marketing. I worked for a financial institution. I had a team of people who were incredible. And I remember sitting at my desk because my boss had just left to go start his own company, to be an entrepreneur. And I remember sitting at my desk thinking, well, I could never do that. I could never do that.
So you never say never. And you know what I love
Never.
about stories, that like few things, like one is that people should never underestimate a little encouragement and a little acknowledgement from people is super important. Like I know a lot of friends and colleagues of mine whom they run different type of businesses, and occasionally they would mention that, I had this book thing, or not necessarily memoir, but maybe bringing what they know into a book, the expertise or their own experience. But we often play it down, like, oh, but
Totally.
yeah, like either somehow shift into one of two ways. One is don't have time, or may not be anything important of some sort. But then
No one will care.
yeah, that sort of thing. And then one thing lead to another. I often find that actually that's exactly what they need to express themselves. And sometimes, or it's not, they don't even have the skill or necessarily the time, because we can all make time, depends on how important it is, but to actually express themselves. How you said that when you have a bunch of challenging times, sometimes because you're not feeling living your own life, right? You need to stay, as you say, stay curious and stay honest, and that's what it is. And so I found your story hit a few important notes. And also, like, let's just say you were that kind of like playing safe personality, but the universe kind of hit you with, first that you just suddenly on your own, and second is that people would just offer you opportunity, which is fantastic. Not for a million years again you would think how I'm going to do it, because you didn't think you could, but things just happen. So that's super important, just to bear that in mind for those who are listening or thinking, writing, if you're passionate, not okay, let's don't even use the word passionate, let's say you're curious about writing,
Or you just like it.
yeah, you don't know, so
You just like it.
just don't close that door for yourself. I think that's important. Just stay open.
Absolutely. I think being open-minded to the opportunity. And my coach, she has a wonderful saying that when I'm feeling resistance or I think I can't do something, her saying is, I give myself permission to consider the possibility that. And then you just add whatever it is at the end. So in this case, if someone out there is thinking they like doodling and they like making logos and they like looking at logos and thinking about what makes them work, but oh my gosh, I could never be a graphic artist. I give myself permission to consider the possibility that people might want to make use of the art that I create.
Mm.
Just say that to yourself, give yourself permission.
Yeah, permission, stay open. And also another,
Say hi to Kitty.
I love
Kitty.
animals appearance in my videos. Or children, not my own, because usually they're quite noisy. One thing also I find it interesting is that people tend to think about those things really big, like a big title, like writer, or I don't know, not necessarily engineer or accountant, like those type of titles. But sometimes things can be very small. As in, you mentioned that interested in logo, which is a great example, because I know there was a business owner who never, for a million years, never think that she was making little like crochet kind of ornaments for Christmas. She never thought that could become a thing, and that became a thing. She ran a like successful business. Or you may love to, I don't know, make homemade chocolate for your kids, and you don't think you
Yeah.
could be like a chocolatier or have your own food and confection company, but you don't know, maybe just a even tiny niche. If you enjoyed it, first of all, you feel great about it, but you don't know, it doesn't have to be a big thing. If you want to do something small, you start small and start niche, and that's actually probably better. She stick with her. Oh, and I have another friend who make door clothes, not for adult, for doors only, and she's super busy, and it's so niche. She did it because she was interested, and she
Yeah.
made a couple for fun, and her friends saw it, and then she put it on Instagram, and other people comment on it, and it would go boom. She eventually has her own business making clothes only for a particular type of doors, one particular type of door. So yeah, if you want to
But
write, start writing. You
you
don't know where
really
you
don't
land.
know. No,
Yeah.
you don't know where that's going to come from. And so, okay, I'm going to lean my head over,
Who is
and
that?
behind me, if you look
Flowers.
behind the flowers, you can
What
see
does
some
that
empty
say?
bottles. You see some
Oh
empty
yeah, yeah,
bottles
yes,
there?
yes, yes, yes.
So downstairs in my house, I make cider. I make hard apple cider.
That sounds
I would
delicious.
never, ever have come to this if it weren't for the fact that I write a lot about agriculture. I'm around people who grow apples. I'm around other people who make hard apple cider. And I just got really interested and got the bug. And I took a course. I learned how to make it. I would never have thought that would be a thing for me ever.
You never know. Next thing you know, you're so good at marketing and
Don't,
copywriting. You have your apple cider
absolutely.
out
You
there.
just don't know. And that, I think that's part of the being open to the possibility that
Mm.
something could come of this. And don't shut it down. Don't shut down your thoughts. Allow yourself to dream and play with those ideas, and just consider that could, maybe that's a thing. Maybe
Yeah.
it isn't, but maybe it is.
But I think you don't want to not know. I mean, you got to express that creative energy. Like, so when we first crafted this interview, we thought we're going to focus on writing, which we will get into it more.
We'll get there.
But it's sometimes it's also about running a business. You got to open a different possibility. You don't know, is it going to be a
Yes.
thing or not? But regardless, you got to express it. You got to let it out, to let it live and see. Like if you see at this corner, this is my goddess planner. I never thought
Ah,
I will make a planner, but then I wanted to find a planner for myself, because like you, I'm a bit type A, and then one thing's really organized and stay ahead of the game, like as in it gives me a mental space and peace. But then I also love that sort of the reflective piece. I love to chart with the moon cycle. I like to plan my work related to the moon cycle, so full moon and new moon specifically. But there's nothing in the market that hit that too. There's no sweet spot that I could find, like where you got this habit tracking, weekly planning, really task orientated, to-do list and everything, and then have a piece where you also got some space to write your thoughts, your dreams, and chart it with the moon. So it may be weird for some people, I don't know, but I want to do something for myself. So I went through 100 of different planner. I bought quite a few of them. I customized a ton of it. None of them worked out. So I was like one night lying in bed, just annoyed. I just wanted to make that happen, and I don't know why. And then boom, then later I thought, why don't I just make my own? And then
Yeah.
one thing leads to another. Now I have 3 versions of planner: 2021, undated, and daily, because it's a kind of different ball game with the daily thing. I kind of use it in my morning routine or meditation and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, that was sort of my creative outlet. And I was actually working on my next book, but that just didn't let me go. It was in my head. I can't sleep. I have to give
Yes.
birth to it,
Yes.
you know? So, but going back to what was I supposed to talk about this interview? I think about, we actually hit on the idea of, entrepreneurship. Sometimes you don't know where it lands. And another thing I find it really important to touch on is that the universe kind of line things up, because your skills in marketing and your interest in writing become a very powerful combination, because a lot of writers that I know don't like marketing. They can write, but they cannot wear that hat, or they even say, I hate that hat. So it's actually a very unique combination of skills. So universe kind of see it, that Ronda can do this, as a good combo for her, and that becomes your background. And so everything would join up if we just allow the possibility and let ourselves see how the dots may align. So that leads to my question, because I want to say many of us found it challenging when it comes to copywriting, because we may be passionate about my planner, but to promote it, to market it, suddenly you have to shift gear, right? Sometimes we find
Yes.
it hard. And so since you got a strong background in marketing, which comes in very handy to help your clients with it, can you tell us a bit, maybe some of the common mistakes, how we can overcome it, or any tips that, because you wear 2 hats and you understand it?
Yeah.
Yeah, tell
And
us a
you're
bit.
right. It is definitely helpful. It's beyond helpful. It's, to me, it's essential to have that marketing skill, because if a client comes to me and says, I need you to create me a sell sheet, a writer without a marketing background is probably just going to say, okay, what kind of sell sheet do you want? And tell me your points and I'll write it. Whereas I'm going to look at it and I'm going to say, okay, what do you want this sell sheet to do? What is the objective that you are trying to achieve with this? And then let's talk about, is it a sell sheet that you need, or maybe it's a case study, or is it a white paper, or is it simply a number of posts on your website? So the marketing background allows me to look at objectives and better work with my clients to get them towards what they really want. So they aren't trying to figure it out. I'm helping them figure out what they need. Some of the biggest mistakes I see people make is exactly that, assuming that what they came up with in their head is what they need. This comes sometimes from something a teacher at university brought up. He called it the martini theory. I
Love it.
love the martini theory, and I talk about it a lot. The martini theory is that if I go home from work and drink 3 martinis every night, that everybody does that. I assume that because that's what I do, everybody does that. But the truth of the matter is that not everybody does that. So you have to be very careful as someone working in a business or an entrepreneur that you know who your target audience is. For example, I met a fellow who, he has a product. Now, this is a man. He has a product called the Daisy Cup. It's a menstrual cup. Well, he's a
Wow.
man. What does a man know about a 20-something woman, which is who he targets with the Daisy Cup? What does he know about that? So it's because he's a good marketer and he can learn about these people who are his target audience that allows him to talk to them.
Although
And that is a key
why would
point.
he like to get into that
I
business?
don't know what got him into it. It's the
Maybe he see a
funniest
gap
thing.
in the market. Is a very business driven type of person? He sees a gap in the market, or he bump into innovation. I mean, it's not very organic, this
No,
idea.
it's not at all. And I think part of it, at least what he expressed to me, part of it was because he's passionate about eliminating waste. And so feminine knows what led him to this, but that was one of the reasons. So Yeah, I mean, that's one of the big mistakes I see. Another big mistake that I see is the philosophy that you have to be everywhere online. There's
Wow, we
often,
gotta hit this hard. Tell me.
I got to be on Twitter. I got to be on LinkedIn. I got to be on Facebook. I got to be on Snapchat. I got to be on Pinterest. I got to be on this new platform called Clubhouse because everybody's on there. It really gets into business people's heads that they need to be everywhere. And again, it comes down to you have to know who that target audience is and be where they are. You don't have to be everywhere. And
Mm,
to be honest, you don't have to be everywhere your target audience is either. Like for me, I've got one networking group that is just hammering this Clubhouse thing. And I'm like, you know what? I don't need another social media platform right now.
mm,
Never say never. We agreed to that before. Never say never. But right now, I'm like, I don't need to add that into my mix,
mm,
which then is kind of the third mistake I see people make, which is the fact that they can't say no.
mm.
Just because something feels like a decent opportunity, a good opportunity, it doesn't mean that you have to do it right now. And there's a lot of fear. If I don't say yes, that this opportunity will go away. You need to know where you're at, where you want to go, what you want your business to do, what you want for yourself.
Mm,
You know, not everybody wants to be a multi-million-dollar business owner.
mm.
So consider that, consider the opportunities that come your way, and just be willing to say no to a few things. We all only
Yeah,
have so much time, right?
love it. So the matinee theory that,
Yeah.
don't assume everybody's you, know your target
Yep.
audience. Don't try to be everyone, everything, everywhere. Focus what you're really doing and why you're doing it, and then try and learn to how to say no. I think that's really very important, like, things to keep in mind, because it is nothing, this is not like something we never heard of, but so often we forget and we need to be reminded. And actually they all come together really nicely as the top three, because they actually one thing into another.
They
um
all work together.
yeah,
And you're
and
right. This isn't rocket science. I'm not saying anything that anyone hasn't heard before, but hopefully I'm helping you understand why those
yes,
things are important and why they should be part of the decision-making process when you're doing things.
and they
It,
gel together, because
yeah.
like we often do too much because we can't say no and try to be everywhere, and we are not clear about what are we assuming and who are we talking to, so they actually really gel together. I think that's really, really important for people to really think about it. So I kind of lost my chain of thought in one of the things that you were mentioning that happened in multi-dimensional conversation, but yeah, so that's another thing that I feel, sometimes we may have, especially creative people or business people or entrepreneur, we have ideas, and I felt that sometimes they come in waves, and it's hard to
Yeah.
join the dot. And then what you're saying about, we're trying to be everywhere, kind of scatter our thoughts as well, because we are like running after and chasing. So sometimes it's hard to, like your cushion said, stay focused, like, I mean, stay centering.
Yeah.
So do you have any tips for people who may have that issue? Because I think, that may be something that you come across as well, that we have
Oh,
lots of ideas out there in the ether, but how do we pull it all
yes.
down, organize them, make them succinct? As a marketer, as a writer, you know how important it is to boil it down. Confused mind don't buy. So you may have 5 or 500 ideas, but maybe only one is actually the focus and everything else is supporting or irrelevant, even, that we have to say no to. So how do you do
Yes.
it?
Focus is, well, I mean, you know this. Focus is hard. When you're an entrepreneur, focus is hard. I don't have children myself, but children are distracting. I have dogs and a cat. They're distracting. I have a husband who is distracting. For goodness sakes, my laundry can be distracting.
Mm,
So it can be very hard to focus. And then, of course, we get all the email with links. And again, this is that learn to say no thing. The links in an email, oh, this might look like something really important and I should read this because this could be really good for me. And look, this person told me about this book that I should read. And we can be pulled in so many different directions. And we each only have 24 hours in a day.
mm,
And it can be so truly overwhelming. So first off, the one thing I would say is when things come in, write them down. It
mm,
creates like a parking lot so that think of it like you're on a road trip. So if your job today is to write a blog post and that's you want to focus, you want to write a blog post and you've got 16 different ideas. I got to book the dentist appointment and I need to go buy dog food and the kid has to go to soccer practice at 3:00 and oh look, this person sent me this email. Write those things down in a parking lot so that they're written down. You won't forget them. They're written down. And then you can go back to the blog post. Okay, so you've emptied out your head and now you're on your blog post. But you get to your blog post and you think, oh, but the laundry needs to be done and this and that and the other thing. And it's very tempting to get up from your chair. So this is my other technique for focusing. So for those of you who are
wow.
listening, I'm holding up a very old-fashioned egg timer type timer. So it's like a physical timer, not on your phone. Phones are loaded. We do too many things on our phone. So a physical timer, this is for 30 minutes. And so I use something called the Pomodoro technique, but really
Yes.
it doesn't matter what you call it. You turn your timer for 30 minutes and you focus on your task for those 30 minutes that the timer is running. Once the timer runs out, you can go off and fold the laundry. But in those 30 minutes, you don't do anything but work on that blog post. You don't check your email. You don't go look at Facebook. You don't unload the dishwasher. You just work on that blog post. When this runs out, go spend 10 minutes and do those other things.
Wow.
When
That's
you're working
interesting.
on that blog post, and like you said, all the ideas are coming about all these good things. And I need to tell them this, and I need to tell them this, and I need to tell them. When you sit down to write the blog post, just ask yourself, what's the point? When I'm interviewing somebody, when I'm writing an article for a newspaper or a magazine, I quite often will ask the people I'm interviewing, why should I care? Why should I care about this? And that one question will tell me what is the point? What's the point of this? So ask yourself that. What is the point of this blog post? And so each time you get pulled off track and you're going down another rabbit hole, what's the point?
What is in it for them? What is in it for
Yeah.
my audience, for my reader?
Why should they care?
Yeah. How does it help? How does it benefit? How is it useful? Yeah, that's super important. And sometimes we lose track on writing, right? But this is actually a bit off track, but I'm actually curious. So for example, one of my very first book I wrote about, which is a little bit of, I don't know how to put it. I just kind of have it put it out there. It wasn't something that I have so much about thinking about what is it in for people, what does it do, like no clear objective whatsoever. So it's all the no. But it was an inspirational piece where I have 21 inspirational messages for 21 days. So each day you get one page about ideas that help us to improve our life or help us more stay centered, true, honest, strong, and all that stuff. So inspirational piece. It's not informational, but it's inspirational. But I did not have a clear objective, but maybe it has without me trying hard to iron it out. I don't know.
I would say you did.
You think subconsciously?
I think so.
Because that was super popular. like without
Yeah.
putting any effort. I have a lot of like 4 or 5 star review without asking. Sometimes I thought, like, what happened? Was it like, has I done the training? So I kind of had that built into my head. How does it help people? Is it helping people? So maybe the thing came out is actually helping people with certain issues that, I found it common or it was bubbling in my head. I don't know. But it was like, I find it surprising because I did not think, but I know that's the right thing to do, what you said.
Yeah.
uh,
And
so
sometimes it does happen organically. Sometimes it just happens. So, if you think about writing, there are times that I have written looking at creative writing. So if I've written a short story or maybe in one of the books that I'm working on, there will be things in there that are subjective, are subliminal, that I did not consciously put in there, that other people, like I say, subjective, other people might look at and go, why did you put that in there? But there's things that some subliminal part of me was coming across with something. And I've seen this with other writers as well. So I can't remember the author's name, shoot. A very famous Canadian author, and she had written a short story, and someone interviewed her and said, do you realize that there are all sorts of representations of shapes within your story? Triangle, circle, and square, and each one had a different message or a different train of thought to it. And she said in the interview, she's like, oh, yes, of course, that was perfectly intentional. Afterwards, she said, I had no clue that was there. He found that. I had no clue. It wasn't until she did that interview that he pointed that out. So sometimes these things just happen. Sometimes we have to be more conscious about how we work. And especially when we're struggling, right? When we're struggling, we're pushing up against something that's trying to talk to us. What is that thing? Is it a distraction that we just need to write down and put in the parking lot for now? Is it something that we need to include? Or is it something that is bigger than all that? Is it an underwriting message that we need to pay attention to? So it's just a matter of knowing where you're at and what you're trying to accomplish, and then being able to filter through that. But it takes time to learn how to do that. I still struggle with that.
That really hits some really interesting point here because, Carl Jung often talked about how our subconscious is constantly finding way to speak to our conscious and actually bring it out. So yes. Hidden message, like not hidden messages, kind of like not exactly the right word, but, the symbols or the underlying meaning or things that, have carried a certain energy or mythological expression, like say even a name of a character, or as you say, the shape or the color or something like that. It may not be obvious to the writer the first sight, maybe even need to be pointed out. But
there's always symbolism, right? Yes. Like there's always symbolism in what we write. So for me, my memoir that I've finished it, I need to continue revising, but I knew early on in that the underwriting symbolism was water. Water runs throughout it because it was a literal element in that point in time of that experience, but then it's also this figurative. It's a symbol. I will give you another example. So my dad passed away 4 years ago, and the day after my dad died, my mom and I were working on some stuff for his obituary and just different things that we needed to do. And he had been in hospice, and this hospice, their logo was a butterfly. And the next day, Mom and I are working on these things, and I was writing on a notepad, and I flipped the page to the next page, and there was a butterfly. And I very quickly learned that every time I see a butterfly on paper or, flying in my yard, it's my dad. It's my dad letting me know he's out there. And I mean, you can say that isn't really a thing. It's just coincidental. and it makes me think of my dad. And you know what? Whatever. Does it matter? Does it matter if it is truly symbolic and it is a message, or if it's a coincidental reminder? And to me, it doesn't matter. So this is a little butterfly somebody gave me. I
Mm.
was at a session with someone, and at the end of the session, she said, "Oh, I have something for you." And she went and she grabbed this little charm. And I looked at it and I went, "Oh, that's my dad saying hi."
Mm.
Like, and to me, those things exist in everyday life. They exist in our writing. They exist in our business.
Mm. I love it because, I think the key point, what does it matter? It only matters if it brings you comfort. It matters if, brings you joy and love and help you to stay on your path. That's all it matters,
Does it
for
have
me.
meaning to you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
does
Like,
it have
does it have
meaning to
meaning to
it's
you?
it's the same with this
Yeah.
type of writing. Like, obviously I did it because I want to share some of my thoughts that I've been collecting, but maybe that it's helpful for people to get as a part of inspiration, so it matters to me, and then it matters to others. So again, I think, go back to what we talked about at the very beginning. It's that you don't know where it lands. You just got to follow the path one step at a time, and stay the course. And if you feel like you're a
And be
writer,
open.
be open to the
Be
possibility.
open.
So, like, we almost run out of time, and I really want to. I found our conversation really juicy, and I feel very inspired by it already. About staying
We
open
didn't talk a
about.
lot about how to write better, but
but no, we talk about common mistakes, but I think the stay
yes.
open, stay true, one step at a time, and the fact that all these things gel together, and ask yourself, would you consider the possibility? I mean, that is big, and
Yes.
we don't have to keep hammering with putting more ingredients when the
No,
dish
but
is ready. Dish
and
is
that's
ready.
it's all part of that whole that we talked about, like you say, the common mistakes. I mean, being focused in your
Mm,
writing, that's writing anything, being focused, know who you're writing to, know that target audience, and staying true to that message that you want to share with them. That's probably the biggest tip in writing there could be. And
mm,
it's true in just about any aspect of business, right?
yes. Yes.
While you are staying open to the things that you can do,
Mm.
and being aware.
So, rounding up, like, I know that we're running out of time, and I really want to ask you this, because it's a really good way of wrapping that up. Is that so? Sometimes we get so busy into figure all this out, doing the right thing, and staying open, and that can be a lot. You, like, you write a lot, and sometimes I work a lot in my business. You stay focused, but completely the head is in that for way too long, hours at a time, and or
Yes.
so I suppose that we all get some sort of creative fatigue or business fatigue, that we
Oh,
just max out.
yes.
So for you, what do you do when that happens?
It took me a very long time to figure this out, and I still haven't fully figured it out, but I will tell you what's currently working. Again, the coach I mentioned, she's given me a ton of pointers. And the biggest thing for me is to allow my creative spirit to play
Hmm.
randomly. So, different things I have at my desk, let me reach for something. So, this is just a block, a magnetic shapes block. I will play with this and make different shapes with it while I sit at my desk. Also on my desk, right now, like right this second, this is on my desk and it's always here. I have a pack of crayons so that I can pull those crayons out and just make the weirdest colorful picture you've ever seen. And I'll do it with my left hand. I'm right-handed. I'll do it with my left hand. In the evenings, cooking for me is a creative thing. Like, I like cooking. I love it. It brings me great joy. So you, especially if you're a creative, but I would say for anyone, because we are all creative beings. Every single one of us is a creative being. And I don't want a single person who is listening to this or watching this to sit there and think, oh, but I'm not creative. No, you are. We are all creative. We all have it in you. And if I can say anything, please stop telling yourself you're not, because you
Mm,
are. We all are. And you need to allow that part of you to have a voice. For me, it's especially hard because I sit down at my desk and I demand it to come out when I need it. So it's like I turn the tap on and I expect it to work, and then I turn the tap off.
mm,
And that's not fair. So that's why I have to allow that creative spirit and outlet. Sometimes it's doing a paint night with my best friend, not right now during COVID, because of course that's not happening. But painting, cooking, playing with toys, playing with crayons.
mm.
It is doing other creative things that don't involve writing, although sometimes it's also allowing myself to sit down and write a short story that doesn't have any intent of going anywhere.
Mm.
So you feed your creative spirit by allowing it to have a voice.
Yeah, love it. Like, that's nice to have toys on the desk. I think that could be really fun. It really reminds me of the matinee theory, because I tell, like, let me share what I do. So obviously meditation is one big piece for me. And I do so I have a little mat downstairs next to the kitchen table. Sometimes I work downstairs with standing desk, and I do leg raises. I do kicks because blood flow. But I just like, sitting down a long time, so I like move my feet and do my leg kicking and just kick a
Yeah.
bunch, and then that's my bit of I do yoga, like, but why I say it's maternity, because I thought everybody, it must be so boring to share this, because everybody is meditating, doing yoga and journaling. I mean, this is top
No,
three. I thought everybody did the same thing.
no.
I know the leg kicking is not common.
See, I run up and down the stairs.
Oh yeah.
I'm in a 2-story house with stairs. So there are certain points in the day that I'll just go run up and down the stairs 4 or 5 times until I'm out of breath and my thighs hurt. You know, it's just the things you do to change where your brain is going.
Yeah. And especially, like, what at work, or whether you're doing business or writing, when you hit a block when you write, like, not block, but you just don't know
No,
how
but
you want
you're
to phrase it, or
stumped.
that paragraph, or
Yep.
at work maybe you got an angry email, you don't want that's the thing, you don't want to necessarily tackle it straight away heads on. And I find it the best is stop being in that emotional place, and for me is leg kicking, do a couple of some
Yeah.
meditation, get your mind switched to something else. Physical thing often help me because it helps with the blood flow, but I mean, the thing
Totally.
is that when you're doing arm balancing, let's say, that you can't think about an angry email, because you're going to flip, you got
No,
to hold on to your
no.
pose. So it forces you to
And your
switch it out.
response will be inappropriate.
Oh yeah,
Like it will be
totally.
disproportionate to the situation because you'll be all reactive, right? I find for me, like I have 2 dogs. I would show you one, but she's passed out on the floor asleep, so you can't even see her. Taking them for a walk can
Yes.
be one of the best things I can do. I get outside air, I'm getting blood flow, I'm getting oxygen in my brain, I'm moving my body, and then I'll come back and I'll feel so much more normal,
Mm.
whatever normal is, but I'll feel so much more normal, and then I can do those things.
Yeah, my best writing and business ideas come from a good yoga class. Always. I mean,
Yeah.
to the point I think maybe I should bring a notebook in. But like I was like, then you're forcing it. So, but I tell you, like, I kid you not, my best ideas always come out either after a shower, a walk, or a good yoga class. And it's just uncanny. And
Yep.
that's what productivity, like feminine wisdom, feminine productivity, to me, it's not how much you hammer on the desk, is how much result you're going to bring, sometimes with the least amount of time and maximum amount of joy, by doing things like what we said, that actually when the energy flow, it comes. You stuck there, you push it with the sort of
Yes.
masculine energy, like get it done, make it happen. It doesn't happen, like for me.
And and I will say quickly that I have the ideal example of that in my household. My husband works in construction. He knows what happens when he goes to work and he hits a nail with a hammer. He knows what happens. He knows how long that will take, and he knows how to do it. I sit down at my desk and it's not like that. It may come and it may not come, right? And that's why I bill my clients per project and not per hour, because I don't, is the idea going to come when I'm in the shower? Is it going to come when I'm walking the dogs, or is it going to come when I'm at my desk? How do I bill for that? So that's why I bill per project. We also have a waterproof notepad in our shower for just that reason, because it comes. That's, and driving, oh my gosh, I almost always have the recorder on my phone because the stuff comes when I'm driving.
That's the same with Sarah Blankley. I have seen her masterclass, and she talks about Spanx, the name of it. She was pondering and pondering, just couldn't get the business name right. She think one day she was driving, Spanx just happened in her eye. Like she just knew exactly how it should spell and look and everything. And her best idea apparently come from driving. She literally, like, I think she said, like, she lived around the corner from the office, but she would drive.
Yeah. I get like my memoir was born while I was driving. The cider thing was born while I was driving. Like all of these, driving for me too. It's because
because you're not forcing your brain to work on this thing, the important
and you're focusing
thing
on something else. So because you're focusing on something else, the subconscious bubbles up and all this good stuff just oozes out, and you're like, oh. So it's the same, I would think, as meditation. You're focused on something else, and you allow your subconscious to have the opportunity to bubble up and deliver you all that good, juicy stuff, because you're not forcing it. You're not hitting it.
Yes. So on that note, I will close our interview and saying, stop hammering it like a nail. This is a writing that or creative business or whatever you call it. It's not a hammer, a nail thing. So that's good to keep in mind. So I would like to thank you for this opportunity. It was super fun to chat with you. And if people want to learn more about your work, your book, and your services, with your creative writing skills and all the juicy stuff, and even chatting with you, I felt gave me like an uplift. So how can people find you?
They can find me on Twitter. I'm a girl with a pen on Twitter. I am on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. So just Ronda Payne. And that's Ronda with no H. I have no H in my name. And my website is girlwithapen.ca, because I am in Canada. So I'm a .ca. Yeah. So people can connect with me any of those ways. And I'm always happy to chat.
Great. And I will put your links down below on the details for the podcast and also on the blog post page, so people can easily see it to reference. So thank you so much for your time, and it's been lovely to chat with you as always.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been my pleasure.